It was the darkest Christmas Eve ever. The snow was falling heavily and all was quiet in the small town of Bedrock. No one was out, the streets were empty, it was as if the entire town had been abandoned. The only sound that could be heard was the howling of the wind, a sound that seemed to be carrying an ominous warning. It was as if some unseen force was warning the citizens of Bedrock to stay inside, to keep away from the eerie darkness that seemed to linger in the air. The night went on, and the more time passed, the more the darkness seemed to take over. A chill ran up and down the spine of everyone who stayed inside, locking the doors and windows, gazing out the window at the darkness that seemed to be consuming the town. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a loud, piercing scream that seemed to come from outside. Then, a figure slowly emerged from the shadows and stepped into the street. It was a tall, thin man wearing a long black cloak, but something about him seemed off. He had a gaunt face and sunken eyes, and he stared straight ahead with a glazed look in his eyes. He seemed to move in a strange, almost robotic manner, and he carried something in his hands that seemed to be dripping with blood. The figure slowly made its way through the streets and seemed to be looking for something, or someone. Eventually, he stopped in front of one house and just stared at it for what seemed like an eternity. Suddenly, the door of the house flew open and a scream echoed through the streets. A young girl ran out of the house, terror written all over her face. She quickly fled the scene, followed by the tall figure, who seemed to be gaining on her with every step. Finally, the girl collapsed on the ground, exhausted and crying. When the figure finally caught up to her, he reached out with his blood-dripping hand and grabbed her by the neck. With a wicked grin on his face, he uttered one sentence, "Merry Christmas." And then, the figure was gone, leaving the terrified girl behind, left to wonder what just happened. The town of Bedrock was left with a sense of terror, questioning what had just taken place. No one could explain what had happened, and the incident has been forgotten about for years. But the townspeople still tell tales of the most horrific Christmas horror story ever told. And every Christmas Eve, everyone in Bedrock still remembers the eerie events of that fateful night and the mysterious figure that seemed to have a connection to the dark side of Christmas.